Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathiran amma ba'd. In our last class, we discussed the very first section of the first chapter of the book Kitab al-Tahara, in which the author, ash-Shaukani, may Allah have mercy upon his soul, explained the types of water and the asl of water, the original basic ruling of water, and the original qualities of water, and how water remains to keep those qualities until something changes and alters one of the three characteristics of the water: its smell, its taste, its color, and then that is further divided into two categories: something that alters the three qualities of the water, which is tahir, which is pure in itself, and something that alters the three qualities of the water, which is najis or najis. Okay, with both is permissible or valid to say, correct to say. He then went on to explain that there's no difference, according to his opinion, what he believes. Once again, as we explained before, this is what the author says. It doesn't mean it's what all of the ulama says or say. It doesn't mean it's what the one who's delivering the class is his opinion. It doesn't mean that. But we're studying systematically, and we're taking and benefiting from what he says. Okay, khair inshallah. There's no difference between a little bit or a lot of bit, a little bit or a little water, a little bit, a large amount of water, a small amount of water. Okay, there's no difference between that which is moving, that which is flowing, and that which is still standing water. It's all the same, according to ash-Shaukani rahimahullah. Water that's used, water that hasn't been used for purification. He then says, may Allah have mercy upon him, he says, Faslun fi anwa' an-najasat. He says, next chapter, we will discuss the different types of impurities. Anwa' an-najasat, different types of impurities. He says, وَالنَّجَاسَاتُ هِيَ غَائِطُ الْإِنسَانِ مُطْلَقًا وبوله إلا الذكر الرضيع ولعاب كلب وروث ودم حيض ولحم خنزير وفيما عدا ذلك خلاف والأصل الطهارة فلا ينقل عنها إلا ناقل صحيح لم يعارضه ما يساويه أو يقدم عليه. He says the different types of najasat. Now, when a person talks about tahara, being pure, and also purifying himself or herself or something, it's very important that you understand the opposite of that which is pure, and the opposite of purification, which is that thing which is najis, which is impure, which is filthy, which is foul and wicked, according to the sharia. According to the sharia. Because a thing could be nasty, a thing could be looked down upon culturally, according to a people, according to a place, according to a time, but not necessarily in the sharia, firstly. Secondly, a thing could be haram, a substance could be unlawful, but it doesn't mean that that substance is najis. Okay, it doesn't mean that it's what? Doesn't mean that it's najis. But every najis is haram. Everything that is najis is impermissible. You can't touch it, you can't wear it, you can't come in direct contact with it, you can't buy it or sell it or eat it or drink it, pray on it or sleep on it. Okay, if it's najis. As for something that's haram, doesn't mean that it's najis. Okay, we don't want to go any further than that, cause any more confusion. Khair, inshallah. So therefore, a najasa is one term, and another term is that which we call mutanajjis. And mutanajjis is basically something that was once pure, but something fell upon it. It fell into something happened to it, in which it became impure. It became najis, but it's not originally najis. Clear? This is very important for the third section of this chapter, with regards to purifying and cleansing things that are najis. The author, he says, the najasat are, number one, غائط الإنسان مطلقا. He says any type of waste or stool from a human being. Okay, any type of stool from a human being is najis, without any difference of its type or amount or whatever the case may be. Very important. And the reason why I said this is because there are some types of human stool or human feces, which are not necessarily, or in which there's detail on, such as if the child is young, an infant, okay, a toddler, all right, if it's solid, if it's of liquid, whatever the case may be, he says mutlaqan, all right. He then says wabawluhu, and also number two, write down number two, the urine of a human being. Pay close attention, he didn't say urine, absolutely, he said of a human being. He didn't say urine of animals, he said urine of a human being. Except for illa dhakar al-Radi', except for a male infant. A male infant. A young male child who is breastfeeding. If a male child, a boy, who's in the age of breastfeeding, he hasn't been weaned yet, he still relies upon his mother's milk for nourishment, then his bowl, his urine, according to the author, is not considered to be najis. Everybody clear on that? It's not considered to be najis. We understand from this is that if the child is no longer breastfeeding, then it's what? Najis. We understand from what the author mentioned that if it's a girl child, even though the girl child is feeding, then it is also considered to be najis. Clear. Moving on. He then says, وَلُعَابُ كَلْبٍ. He says, in the saliva of a dog, or a dog's saliva. He didn't say the dog's body, nor the dog's blood, nor the dog's stool, or this or that. He said one thing and one thing only, and that is the saliva of a dog. Okay? Not saying that a dog's body isn't najis or isn't. We're not saying that, but the author, he said what? Lu'ab. He said the spit of the dog, the saliva of the dog. Okay? And it's very important as a student of knowledge, when you're studying a book, to study the book systematically. Systematically. Take each word, each phrase, break it down, dissect it, and digest it and understand it. Your personal conviction is one thing, but to understand what the author says, at least he has that right upon you. One of my teachers in the Islamic University of Medina, he told me, it was in my 3rd year of College of Hadith, he was telling us in the class, and I never forget this statement, it's still with me for the rest of my life since then. He said, Al-fahmu shay, wal-iqtina'u shay'un akhar. He said, understanding is one thing, conviction is something else. Just because you don't necessarily have to be convinced with something and believe it to be correct for you to misunderstand that thing, all right? Many people, they don't understand, and they say it's wrong, it's batil, it's incorrect. So, la. You didn't even understand what I said. You didn't even understand what I meant. You don't even understand what this means. So don't be too hasty to jump the gun and refuting or rejecting or criticizing something that you properly do not understand. Okay? Secondly, as a student of knowledge, especially a beginner, it is your job to soak up and take as much information from your teachers as you can. Everything that they tell you or give you may not be right. It may not be the ijma, consensus of all the ulama, but you're a trainee, you're a student, you're a baby. Okay? All right? Number 4, the author, he says, waroth. He says here, and he says the stool of animals, dung of animals, okay? Here he didn't specify what animal, of a horse, of a donkey, of a cow, but he said roth, not that comes from a human being. There are further details in this issue with regards to the waste of an animal whose flesh is lawful to eat, waste of an animal who can be slaughtered, okay? There's details with regards to that, whether it's permissible or impermissible, but here the author, he mentioned roth, and he didn't make any type of detail. Moving on. Number 5, he then says, وَدَمُ حَيِّض. He says, and the blood that comes from a woman's menstruation. Blood that comes from a woman's menstruation is considered to be najis. He doesn't say blood, absolutely. Blood that comes from a woman, from her normal part of her body. Blood from a man, blood from a cut, blood from an animal. He said one type of blood, and that is the blood of menstruation. Number 6, he says, وَلَحْمُ خِنْزِيرٍ. He says, in the flesh of swine. The flesh of swine is najis. Here he didn't mention its blood, nor its skin, nor its hair, nor its teeth, nor its intestines. He mentioned its flesh. He then says, وَفِيمَا عَدَى ذَلِكَ خِلَافٍ. He says, anything besides what we mention here, the scholars differ over. The people of knowledge, the Muslim doctors of the past, they differ over, is it tahir or is it najis? Let's make an example of this. Semen. Semen. Is semen pure or is it najis? There's a difference of opinion with regards to semen. Okay. Blood that comes from a wound or cut. All right. You're preparing something in the kitchen and you accidentally cut your finger. May Allah prevent you cut your finger. Okay. Is that blood najis or is it tahir? You have a band-aid on. Can you make salat with a band-aid on? With a gauze pad? Is it okay? Khilaf. But he says these things here, what we understand from his statement is for these things here are considered to be agreed upon according to what he mentioned here. Rahimahullah ta'ala. He then says, Wal aslu tahar. He says, and going back to the original basic rule of thumb, is that everything is pure. Every matter, every substance, every essence is tahir, is pure. He says, فَلَا يَنْقُلُ عَنْهَا إِلَّا نَاقِلٌ صَحِيحٌ. He says, and nothing can make a thing impure unless there is a clear proof, a clear dalil, an evidence, which doesn't have any other evidence which contradicts or clashes with it. Okay? It is not contested by another proof or another foundation or another fundamental rule or principle. Everybody clear on this? In other words, he's saying that there may be a hadith that says this thing is impure, but the hadith could be weak. Or it could be another hadith that is stronger and more authentic. Or it could be a principle that is more generally accepted by all of the fuqaha, and so on and so forth. In other words, he's saying to you that everything stays as it is with regards to the worldly matters until they are clearly proven. And it says not just something that's doubtful, not just something that is mentioned. He says here, لَمْ يَعَرِضْ مَا يُسَاوِي أَوْ يُقَدَّمْ عَلَيْهِ. Something that has something that can be either equal to it in strength or more stronger or equal. And it's a very, very important principle for the student of knowledge. If you have something that is based off of certainty, if you're sure of a fact, a piece of information, then you do not disregard that fact or piece of information unless you have one or two things. Number one, something that is of equal strength or equal clarity, or number two, something that is even stronger, even clearer. As for something that's doubtful, something that's maybe mumkin, possible, then you do not do away with your certainty and that which you know, which is an asl, a fundamental original principle of the Islamic Sharia. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us understanding of His religion and allow us to act upon it. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad. Jazakumullahu khairan.